Hello everyone, good morning or good afternoon. My name is Ted Hulsey. I'm Vice President of Marketing at eFolder and your host and moderator for today's special product announcement. Just over a week ago, eFolder announced the acquisition of Replibit. Today we are excited to announce our first big innovation with Replibit. I am joined today by eFolder CEO Dr. Kevin Hoffman and Replibit co-founder and CEO Andrew Benzinger. Before we go through the agenda, let's cover a few housekeeping items. Today's session is being recorded. The recorded version of the webinar, along with the slides, will be made available to those who registered for the event. You will also find a recording of today's session on eFolder's YouTube channel within a couple hours. With over 463 people registered for today's session, we've put all participants in listen-only mode. You can enjoy the audio portion of today's event by either streaming it on your computer or by dialing in over the phone. Your questions are strongly encouraged throughout. We have planned a special Q&A section at the end, but you may submit your questions as we go along, and we'll try to address your questions on the fly. So with that, let me turn things over to Kevin. Kevin, take it away.
Yeah, very good. Well, we're excited to be here, and welcome to Andy as well. Andy.
Thanks, Kevin. It's a pleasure being here.
Excellent. So, so this has been a while in coming, and we're just very excited to show you what we've got built today. So first of all, very quick, eFolder's mission, protecting business productivity. We have a comprehensive platform for delivering data protection, many forms of backup for cloud applications, as well as files, mobile productivity through file sync and sharing with our Anchor platform, and of course BDR, and which we're featuring today with the Replibit offering. So eFolder Replibit, it's a patented software plus cloud solution that delivers many unique aspects, but some of the most interesting that we've heard from partners over the last year are its chain-free backup technology, the ability to either use eFolder's cloud or easily vault to yourself if you're a larger partner with infrastructure, the automated screenshot verification, and the file system integrity checking that goes in behind that to supplement that, so you know, hey, I can quickly virtualize my backups and my data is good inside of every backup snapshot. The single pane of glass management, going to one console, seeing all of your BDRs out in the field, all of your appliances, your vaults if you're vaulting to yourself, managing those, the deep ConnectWise integration, and then finally the avoidance of having to rebase or reseed through some of the common scenarios that you might have to with other solutions. Okay, so we launched BDR for Replibit as a commercial partnership back in March of 2015. And so, you know, we have the excellent Replibit software in the solution. eFolder built a cloud around the solution, but something was missing. And we quickly heard from partners that, hey, you know, we like the idea with Replibit to build our own hardware and, you know, bring our favorite vendor to the table, but a lot of times, hey, we just want something that's turnkey, it's integrated, I don't want to have to worry about the partner, I want one throat to choke. And so for many partners, they wanted an appliance. And so shortly after the commercial partnership began, me and Andy started working together, figuring out, you know, what is the ideal BDR appliance for the market, not just an average one. So I like this quote, which recently appeared by James Everingham, and he just says that good software is an act of empathy. So essentially, you know, we should be designing solutions by truly understanding you as an MSP, what pain are you going through, what's important to you. And so we'd like to begin by saying, you know, here's what we've heard from partners, you know, that is discomforting to them when they're thinking about their current solutions. And so we're not saying that any one solution has all these pain points. We're simply saying, you know, here are some pain points of different solutions, and we've brought them together into the 4 themes that we've heard are the most painful. So unreliability, you know, this can be hardware failure, you know, spinning hard disks are known to not be reliable. It could be complex software, you know, any combination thereof. Labor intensive, you know, do you feel like you're constantly pushing a boulder around with your BDR solution? You're constantly having to go and diagnose something or look at the configuration or, you know, test the backups because you don't trust them. And then, you know, when the recovery happens, customer calls you up, my server just went down, they're panicking, and now they paid all this money to you, and you as an MSP, it's up to you then to deliver on that promise. They bought business continuity, and now they're in crisis mode, and they expect you to be up and running. And so how fast you handle that use case really determines the value that they see getting out of that business continuity solution that they purchased. And so, trying to run production class servers on archival class storage on BDR appliances in general is a very difficult and just, cross your fingers type of experience. And then, some BDR solutions, maybe they work great and they're reliable and you like them. They're just eating into your wallet. They're expensive. And you know that, hey, I'm not able to get a lot of my dollars, but they're not so painful, and so you're paying money. So
Kevin, should we do the poll here just to get everybody's input on what they see as there? Okay.
So we'd like to do the poll. So Ted's going to put up the poll here, and let's just find out, for you, what is the what's the most painful aspect of BDR for you today.
Yeah, so we're going to give this a couple more seconds, so please just pick one, and we'll be giving a couple more seconds. Okay.
It's fun to watch these tallies in real time.
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and close the polls. Last call. Okay, and you can't pick multiple. I'm sorry, Colin. All right, here, let's close this out, and I'm going to share this. Okay, so those are the results.
So you should see on the screen, so number one, pain, expensive total system costs. Clearly the wallet is the bottom line. Number two, labor intensive, just a lot of labor and pain. Number three, unreliable system recoveries, and then finally fourth, the speed of the BDR itself. Yeah, good feedback. So, okay. Well, clearly, we're excited. We believe we have a good answer for both, the expensive part of it and labor intensive. We'll certainly hone in on those themes. So let's talk about unreliability first of all. There's various things. Looks like the deck is, okay, we're good.
Okay. Yeah, we can see just fine, yep.
Yep, so hardware failures. Anytime there's a hardware failure in a BDR component, it's out in the field, you've got to send somebody out there. Some partners that we have, they're serving customers nationally with their BDR, and so it's not convenient at all to get parts or a human out there. And so the more times you have to touch it, it just eats into your wallet. And the hard disk, mechanical hard disks are just high failure. A big Google study recently with tens or even hundreds of thousands of hard drives found that a 4-year failure rate of one spinning disk is 8 to 41%. Meaning that even if you've got a BDR out there over its 4-year life cycle, chances are you'll have to replace one of those disks over 3 to 5 years. And then RAID cards, RAID cards just fail in odd ways. Disks don't behave themselves, or the bus locks up, or a firmware bug causes data corruption. It's just not very fun to experience that. And then, of course, beyond those two, we see a lot of failed power supplies and cooling fans that fail. Anything that's moving just fails. And power supplies is typically from heat. Heat is your enemy there. Software complexity. So some BDR solutions, there's just a lot of moving parts, and you've got to figure out, have I correctly configured this? Follow a big long checklist to make sure that you're not shooting yourself in the foot there. And then once you set that up, you've got to make sure that you're monitoring all those moving parts in the software to make sure that the whole thing is working correctly. And then for systems that use the traditional sort of change block tracking for backups, there's certain scenarios that can cause the rebasing or a differential backup that can result in large deltas, which can result in rebasing or reseeding. and that can cause a lot of labor when that happens, having to send somebody out to do the receipt operation, etc. In terms of labor intensive, there's really, 3 different main engagement points on a BDR. So when you first set up a BDR, sometimes Windows-based BDR systems, you've got to go through and you've got to patch it all and configure it, get your RMM tool on there. When you install agents for image-based backup, you've got to reboot those servers, which means, scheduling all of that. The larger the client, the more work that is. You might have dependencies, and so it's just annoying. You've got to come back. You can't get the backup started right away. And then burn-in testing, many MSPs build the hardware or buy BDR, ship it to themselves, and then have to do all of this, and then they go and reship it to the customer. Okay, so ongoing maintenance, like we described, some you have to periodically rebase or reseed, and if you don't have automated virtual screenshot verification or backup integrity checking, many MSPs have 1 or more full-time employees doing nothing but checking their backups all day long. And then finally, when it comes to recovery, recovery sounds easy, but sometimes you'll find that you might spend several hours because it didn't behave as you expected it to. The harder it is to test, the harder it is to make sure that your recoveries are smooth when it comes time to do that.
Yeah, and Kevin, one of the key points on these recovery scenarios, because that's the bread and butter of everybody's business when it comes to offering BDR services, is not to have a single methodology to perform your recoveries. When bad things happen, bad things really happen, and things may not behave as expected. And one of the things that we've spent a lot of time working on is, regardless of the particular scenario, the type of recovery that you're trying to perform, there are multiple methodologies under the hood to allow for unforeseen events.
Yeah, good point, Andy. Yep. Sometimes it's hard to predict exactly why something failed, how to recover. Well, good. So the speed of which which your BDR performs when you're virtualizing. If you're trying to run an Exchange server, SBS server with a line of business application and SQL server and a heavy file server and a terminal server, on a BDR, if you're having to virtualize especially multiple servers at the same time, it can be a big challenge. And so typically, based on our testing, a typical BDR today provides about 100 IOPS inside of a virtualized VM, which is equivalent to the performance of about a single hard disk in terms of the random I/O performance. And so if you're really a techie and you want to get extra credit, take the disk speed benchmark challenge. So this is a Microsoft benchmarking tool. Just run one of your VMs in test virtualization mode, and that's the command line to use to test I/O performance on that BDR. And go ahead and email me the results, khoffman@eFolder.net. I'd be very curious to understand what your current virtualization performance is. But we think we can do much better than 100 IOPS. And then expensive. So today what you're getting, a typical BDR, you've got 1 terabyte of RAID 1 storage, you've got a 4-core processor, 16 gigs of RAM, and that's going to run you somewhere between $1,600 to $2,000. And whether you're using endpoint-based pricing or appliance-based pricing today, it's going to run you about $200 a month. Beyond the hard costs, you've then also got all of your soft costs for labor if you're doing manual DR testing or boot testing, if you don't have a single pane of glass, or you're having to rebase or reseed, and so forth. Okay, so we're very excited to introduce the next-gen BDR, and we've combined eFolder's 5 years of BDR experience. So we launched our BDR solution in 2010. So we've been around the block a time or two with our MSPs. Like we mentioned, we started working on this about a year ago, shortly after the commercial partnership with Andy. SSD prices, meanwhile, have been falling exponentially, which we've been carefully tracking. And we think that we've crossed an inflection point where the cost per gigabyte of SSDs is certainly not at the hardest level, but based on the dollars already being spent with BDR hardware for legacy hardware, we can deliver an all-SSD solution that provides the reliability of an enterprise-grade solution with the same cost as a legacy solution. We've also focused on some innovations, making cost-effective SSDs work properly within a BDR solution. Working, especially since the acquisition, in tight collaboration with Andy and the Replibit dev team to make the turnkey hardware experience that much more integrated. And then, of course, just lots of listening and feedback. We've got a partner council, and Andy talks to many MSPs and our account management. Just a lot of that practical experience from our years of operation, getting that feedback. So we believe we have the potential to give you a secret weapon for your BDR profitability, that we can solve these 4 pain points with this next generation solution. So we're excited to introduce 3 appliance lines. The Replibit Mini for smaller environments that have known capacities. You've got the Replibit Pro, and you'll see shortly the size of this, but it's like the size of a small NAS unit. That can have up to 15 terabytes of storage, so it's field expandable, so that's for your growing clients. And then the Replibit Rack is for your multi-tenant vaulting, if you're vaulting to yourself, or your even larger clients that can go up to 18 terabytes of storage, all flash. So we'll be unboxing 2 of these today in just a minute, but let's just get the highlights of the specs. So the Mini is 7 inches by 7 inches by 2.5 inches. And it has 1 to 2 terabytes of all SSD storage, logical, that's usable storage. It's got 16 or 32 gigs of RAM and a 4-core Skylake processor. So this is perfect for all of your clients that have less than 2 terabytes of storage and a couple of VMs. This can virtualize them quite nicely on this box. So the Pro, so this unit is for that growing customer. Has 128 gigs of RAM, starts with 3 terabytes of logical flash storage, expandable up to 15 terabytes of storage, an 8-core Xeon processor with Broadwell cores, so very modern Xeon chipset, and small form factor still, but you're getting, the Mini gets you at least about 10,000 IOPS. The Pro, based on the 20 SSDs you can put in this thing, you can get up to 200,000 IOPS. Out of this unit. And then the rack. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, Kevin. It's really important to note on both the Pro and the Rack, regardless of how much storage it comes with out of the gate, all of these units are fully populated with the 128 gigs of RAM and the 8-core processor, correct?
That's right. Yeah. So so we're building in that value so that you can serve much larger clients as that client needs expands. Almost all clients that SMB serves that we found have less than 128 gigs of RAM, and so 1 Pro or 1 Rack can serve your needs, and you can virtualize with confidence that you can throw more RAM or more CPU at the situation if needed. And then of course the Rack 2U form factor, very similar to the Pro in specs. Except that you've got 4 more hard disks, so you can add 3 more terabytes of logical flash storage for 18 terabytes. So if you just compare for a moment. Oh, go ahead, Andy.
And Kevin, real quick, just to make everybody's life a little bit easier on these devices, I believe the Pro and the Rack both come with IPMI or lights out cards for remote management.
Yeah, good point. That's right. So unfortunately the Mini does not, but the Pro and the Rack both have lights out IPMI with full screen emulation and power management. So the legacy BDR, like we described, typically you get 1 to 400 IOPS out of the storage, up to 2 terabytes, in these smaller form factors, and 16 gigs of RAM is what we found is standard on various BDRs out in the field. 1 gigabit networking, and they're typically using between 250 to 400 watts of power. And some of these solutions do take quite a while to set up for the reasons that we described. So the next generation BDR, on the other hand, has 10,000 IOPS for writing and even more for reading at a floor, at a minimum, and it goes up from there. You've got the 15 terabytes of logical flash storage on the Pro, or the 1 or 2 terabytes on the Mini. The Mini, again, 16 gigs or 32 gigs of RAM, or up to 128 gigs with the Pro. The Pro and the Rack come with 10 gigabit networking, so these are future-proof. Many SMB networks don't still deploy a lot of 10G, but it doesn't stop us from knowing that that's necessary in an environment with 10 terabytes of storage. You really might have 10G networking, and you should be able to take advantage of the raw power and speed of flash storage. Another amazing aspect of SSD storage is it's small and is power efficient. So the Mini only uses 25 watts of power, and the Pro uses less than 100 watts of power. And that makes it easy to cool, which means they're quiet as well. And these will come fully configured out of the box. So when you order them, you'll tell us, hey, here's the networking configuration, here's the IPMI lights out configuration, here's the customer it's tied to, here's my global management portal. And so you'll receive the box, and all you have to do is plug in power, plug in the networking. It'll automatically talk to the cloud management portal, and you'll see it show up, and you can start doing all the management functions from the cloud. So it's literally ready to go out of the box. So there's 4 game-changing technologies that we feel define what next-generation BDR means. So first we've got something that we call FastFlashSSD Storage, which means providing the equivalent of enterprise-class SSD storage, but at the fraction of an enterprise price. DuraBit Data Protection technologies. So we have 5 different layers that go into ensuring that all of the data, once it's backed up to the unit, is, the integrity is there and the failure rate is so much lower than your typical physically moving disk type of storage solution. Then we're leveraging Intel system on a chip for far greater compute, RAM, I/O, and power profile. So the performance per watt is far higher, and it gets us into a much smaller form factor, but without compromising on system performance. And then, of course, the chain-free backup technology, which has its advantages that we'll review. So, why can't we just, how is this any different than taking a server and sticking a bunch of like Samsung Evo 850 SSDs in there? Those are great drives. Don't get me wrong; they're very popular for a reason. But you won't actually get enterprise-class storage. So, client SSDs over time, you can see the graph on the right. IOPS over time drop dramatically, pretty quickly, and the durability is also in question over time under server workloads because you get this write amplification effect. And so RAID controllers and other software technologies, storage technologies that provide redundant storage across SSD units, they cause this write amplification effect where they're writing a lot more physically than the computer system logically is writing, and so you wear out these SSDs far faster than it sounds like from their spec sheets. And so, both the performance and reliability concerns over time, make it more of a challenge to use a consumer-grade SSD for a business-grade offering. So, fast flash SSD storage technology from eFolder, we've done some things both in software and carefully selected hardware with a very reliable SSD vendor to combine to deliver very economical flash, but with guaranteed minimum levels of I/O performance and guaranteed levels of durability over time, such that these SSDs will not wear themselves out. Plus, we virtualized the way that the backups are stored. They're stored in a raw format, and then we've created software technology that allows us to dynamically recreate a partition table around these raw partition data tables. And so we can use that to boot up UEFI servers, EFI servers within the appliance itself, or we can emulate what's necessary to do a live iSCSI boot directly within VMware. And so it provides us a lot of flexibility. What it means for you is that any recovery point on the BDR, even the very oldest one to the very newest one, it's going to have the same level of performance when you virtualize that. It's just going to be very, very fast, potentially much faster than the SMB's production server running on non-flash storage. So another cool technology that we've been able to engineer with the next generation BDR is something that we call DuraBit, 5 layers of protection. So again, we want to eliminate, if at all possible, the number of situations in which an MSP has to go out to the customer site and deal with a failure, and especially a failure that's going to cause any sort of data loss event. So if you just take your SSDs, the first layer here is power loss protection. So Some more economical client-side SSDs, they just don't have the right level of protection. If there's a sudden power failure or brownout, flash cells, they can rewrite themselves as the power goes down. They're actually an analog type of circuit, and you can get some data corruption down on the SSD. And so you need various forms of capacitors to keep that current up long enough for it to shut down the circuitry in a stable state to make sure that data is good. So that's layer number one. Layer number two is page-level ACC. So solid-state disks are made up of a bunch of much smaller NAND cells, which then are formed into pages. And so you can add redundant pieces of information at the page level such that if any particular page of flash gets corrupted or damaged, which happens naturally over time with flash, it's just something wears out a little bit sooner than expected, the other pieces of information inside of that same page will make it appear as if nothing happened. And so they're automatically resilient at the page level. Then what happens is, you take a whole bunch of these pages and you do the same exact thing across multiple pages. Think of it more like a RAID, but across pages. And so that's another layer of protection on top, such that if a whole series of NAND chips with a whole collection of pages fail, you still won't see that at the SSD level. Of course, above that layer, now if an entire SSD can fail. So oftentimes with SSDs, you'll just see incremental failure where blocks start to go bad over time, and that's where the page level and NAND chip level redundancy come in. But if the entire SSD fails, you still need redundancy as well. It's not sufficient, in our view, to just stick a single SSD in a small unit and call that good. The whole SSD can fail, and so you still need the logical volume, RAID-like protection across SSDs to tolerate that type of failure. Finally, silent data corruption protection. So every data block that's stored has a strong checksum attached to it, and then as those copies of the data are made to each of those SSDs, the checksum is independently attached to each block of that data, and so anytime the data is used, it's verifying, hey, the data that I'm getting back from this SSD matches the strong checksum, and therefore I can guarantee that the data that I wrote when I originally backed this thing up is exactly the same data, and we can periodically, once a month, go through and verify that all of the data blocks match their checksums and heal and rewrite those portions of the redundant data that do not match the checksums. And then finally, on top of that, we have both the automated screenshot verification and the automated file system integrity checks. So actually doing NTFS checks on the transaction log and for lost file nodes and any other type of file system corruption, we'll find that, and then we can make sure that things can boot all the time, once a day, automatically. So this is a very unique level of protection. Typically with your legacy BDR system, what you've got is just a hard disk under RAID or not, depending on the system, and then you might have automated screenshot verification on top. So this is many assurances that your data remains good over time. Finally, we've got system on a chip. So the Xeon D architecture, again, 8 Broadwell cores, 16 threads, 128 gigs of RAM, a 10G NIC chipset on the CPU die itself, as well as USB 3 controller and the PCIe bandwidth to support the level of IOPS and throughput that the number of solid-state disks that we put into Pro can handle. And that's right on the CPU die, so it's very efficient in how that works, and can produce that with just a very small wattage, just about 35 watts for that processor, which is an amazing feat from Intel. And then we've got the Replibit software chain-free backup technology, which means that you don't have to reboot those production servers when you install the agent. There's no device driver that we have to put into place. And because it's doing the independent differencing of snapshots when the backups happen, there is no potential need to rebase or reseed. And every recovery point is independent of every other one. And so if you say, hey, I just want to remove this one recovery point, you can go and delete that without having to worry about what's before or what's after, which means it's very easy, and we implemented automated tiered retention policies so that you can say, hey, I want to keep this number weeklies, monthlies, dailies, and yearlies, so that you can have a very efficient retention without having to worry about the underlying pieces of data underneath the covers.
And it's important to note, Kevin, that that retention policy is not based on the generation of any type of roll-up or synthetic file. There are these freestanding independent recovery points that are simply based on the retention policy. Our partners can choose to not delete those files in an automated fashion, and they can stick around for as long as you need them to be there.
That's right. So you know, you could actually retain 10 weeks of weekly deltas and only have 1 month of monthly deltas if you wanted to, and that would be perfectly fine under the system. And you'd have those 10 weeklies, and then you'd have the 1 monthly. And so it works a little differently than, it's more flexible because every recovery point is independent of every other recovery point in the system. So this all sounds, you know, nice and dandy, but, you know, is it going to cost you an arm and a leg? Which we saw was the #1 pain point that you have as an MSP with BDR. So all of this is for naught if we can't deliver this at a price point that's going to make you excited. Oops. Sorry about that. So we have game-changing pricing to announce. So the Replibit Mini has 2 models, a 1 terabyte logical model and a 2 terabyte logical model. The 1 terabyte unit has 16 gigs of RAM, the 1 terabyte of fast flash storage. It's $11.99 to purchase, and then it's $99 a month, unlimited agents, as many servers and desktops as you want to back up using that storage, and it also comes with unlimited cloud backup with a 3-year retention policy. So you know, we pretty much feel this will cover 60% of end users out there with the 1 terabyte model at a very affordable flat rate of $99 per month with this unit. If your client's a little bit larger, you can go for the Mini 2000, double the flash storage, double the RAM, but less than double the price. It's only $19.99, and then you've got $199 a month as well. You know, so very affordable. If you compare these price points to other BDR solutions that provide unlimited agent backup or even endpoint backup, you know, these are about half the price of competitive solutions for this amount of storage. And so we feel that it's should help you increase the profitability as an MSP.
Hey,
Or
Kevin,
again,
yep. Kevin, before we move on, I just want to address a couple questions that came in the Q&A log. So John wants to know, can you virtualize on the Mini? The data equivalent can't do local recovery. So can you elaborate?
Yeah, very good point. Absolutely. You know, this is powered by FastFlash technology with the redundant DuraBit. There's 3 SSDs for the data inside of this Mini, plus 1 dedicated operating system solid-state disk. And so it has thousands of IOPS performance. It's got the RAM to virtualize, and you've got a 4-core Skylake processor. And so there's plenty of horsepower there to virtualize not just 1, but several VMs on the Mini unit itself. And so
Kevin,
this can replace...
It's important to note that the software stack on the Mini Pro and Rack is absolutely identical across the board. So we did not put any limitations on the functionality of the devices based on the unit that is purchased.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So very good point. You know, it's a price point. You know, that's more on the low end BDR, but it includes full class enterprise level BDR feature set.
So Kevin, another kind of related question from a couple folks have asked, can you still use your own hardware?
Yeah, so we're going to get to that in a minute. You absolutely can use your own hardware, and we actually have more flexibility for the bring your own device where we're letting you choose now with your own hardware, endpoint-based pricing like we've had, or appliance-based pricing, but for your own hardware, and we'll get to that a little bit later. Yep. So in fact, you know, this we're not going to go through all the details, but essentially the Mini has 2 models. The Pro starts with 3 terabyte of usable flash storage, and you can expand that in the field, starting from the base model all the way up to 15 terabytes of flash storage. The Rack starts again with 3 terabytes of flash, and then you go all the way up to 18 terabytes of all flash storage usable in the field. And you can choose an appliance-based subscription model, which is either a 3-year retention policy or a 10-year retention policy for one flat monthly rate based on the type of unit. Or you can still use the endpoint-based pricing model. And so you can say, look, I just want to buy the hardware up front, and then I want to pay my $60 per server per month, and that goes down with volume. And so if you prefer that endpoint-based pricing model. And so you can choose at the time when you buy the BDR appliance whether to use the appliance-based model or the endpoint-based model for that particular unit. So build your own BDR is absolutely supported. To this date, we've only had the endpoint-based pricing model, but now we're also offering the ability to choose when you provision your own BDR hardware. Hey, this unit I want to use, the appliance-based pricing model, which means that you're licensed up to a certain capacity for your storage pool on your own hardware, unlimited backup agents at the same flat monthly rate, starting at 1 terabyte for $99 a month. And so, we heard from MSPs that there are many environments with just a whole bunch of small servers, and they're paying a lot of money for endpoint-based BDR. Now you can just go for that particular customer, the appliance model, $99 a month. You could back up 4 or 5 small servers, and and save a lot of money that way.
Now, Kevin, on this build your own model, can you dynamically or on the fly, let's say you purchased on the build your own BDR, I purchased an appliance-based 2 terabyte storage. I'll have the ability to increase that storage as needed just by making a modification in the licensing portal, correct?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So like Andy's saying, you go into the Replibit license portal and you choose, hey, convert my 2 terabyte license to a 3 terabyte license, and then you'll be able to, in your storage pool, expand that storage pool up to whatever it is that you're authorized to use at that point.
So Kevin, a couple pricing questions. Maybe if we go back just 2 slides real quick, to the matrix, I think. So one question is are these MSRP or are these MSP costs?
Yeah, so eFolder does not publish MSRP. We're wholesale to the channel only, and so these are the MSP costs. From there, channel partners can mark them up however they please.
And then Goran wants to know, what is the cost to vault to yourself? How does that work?
That's free. Yeah, so there is no charge, like you can see at the bottom. Whether you're building your own hardware or you're using our appliances, you can use the appliances on the client side. You can use our vault, the rack for the vaults or the pros, or your own hardware. You can mix and match. But there is no charge for the vaulting license or the global management portal license. We're only licensing and charging for the backups based on appliance, storage or endpoint.
We're firmly committed for our partners to have the flexibility. They either send their data to the eFolder cloud or continue on and vault to themselves. There is no pricing change under the model if you choose to vault to yourself.
Yeah, so our goal here is, we heard from a lot of partners, they're just MSPs have very different business models, and we don't want to dictate to you, for each client, what's right. You can pick the pricing model that makes the most sense. And so, we feel like we have the most flexible offering. Use our hardware or not, use appliance-based pricing or endpoint-based pricing. For each client, you can pick and choose what makes the most sense for that client.
So Kevin, a related question though, real quick, just related question. When you vault to eFolder, the pricing, how does the pricing look?
It's included. So if you're using eFolder Cloud, it's included in this price. So the $99 a month includes unlimited eFolder Cloud usage with that price point, as well as all of the unlimited agents. So you go to a customer that has 3 servers, their total data is 700 gigabytes. You back that all up to one Mini 1000 appliance, and you replicate it to the eFolder Cloud. Your total cost is $99 a month for everything.
And then if you're using endpoint-based subscription model, how does it work?
Yeah, so in that same client that had 3 endpoints, then it would be $60 times 3, so $180 a month, which would get you up to 6 terabytes of cloud storage for those 3 endpoints. So the endpoints is clearly better for larger storage environments, or if you're MSP, if you're charging per endpoint, and then the appliance model is better if you're thinking about customers, more on storage, or they all fit within a particular capacity point.
Great.
Yeah, so I think we should go to the unboxing here, Ted. So let me stop the screen sharing, and you should, go to webinar, be able to pull up the video, and we're just going to introduce the Mini here first. So one thing. Go ahead, Andy. Yep.
No, go ahead, Kevin. I'm sorry.
No. I was just going to say, this comes in a militarized case. One thing that we heard was shipping damage is annoying, and just annoying for everybody, really. So you can actually roll a car over this thing without crushing the contents of the inside. So custom foam on the inside, perfectly fit, and this is the Mini unit. So we're going to go to a close-up shot here. Let me just switch cameras. 1 second.
Now, and Kevin, while you're doing that, we just want I'd just like to add that every unit that you order, the Mini or the Pro, will come in a case like that. It's water resistant. We are a green company, so included with the order is a return label if you choose to return the box. Otherwise, feel free to keep it and use it for whatever purpose you need.
Yeah, exactly. So we make it really easy to recycle and reuse these containers, or you can keep it. So this is really pretty simple. I'm just going to connect the power cable here. Here we go.
And while Kevin does that, I'd like to talk a little bit about other things that we took into consideration when we were designing these things, and with the full expectation that you may have several of these units out in the field. So one SKU that we are going to be offering is a spare parts kit, and I can get to that in a little bit. It looks like Kevin has that plugged in and ready to power on.
Yeah, so I wish you were here in the room with me, so you would hear, silence is golden. And when you turn this thing on, there's literally no sound that comes out of it at all. There's a very quiet fan that's moving air over the chipset, but it's nearly silent. Again, there's 4 solid-state disks in this thing, 1 for the operating system, 3 for the FastFlash DuraBit storage layer that provides 1 or 2 terabytes of storage. And we're not going to show you, but it's you can pop off the lid, and it expands upwards, and then you can put in, that's where the 4 SSDs go. And so, yeah, so it's really pretty simple, compact. We're going to turn that off and move on to the Pro. So let me put that
It's really kind of funny. I spent a lot of my life living in data centers, so I am partially deaf from screaming servers. And when we've been working with Kevin over the past year on designing this device, he kept on saying, it's too loud, it's too loud. I couldn't hear a thing. And he kept working and working to get it to Kevin's standard of absolutely silent. And if I could hear it, I'm sure I wouldn't be able to hear it. But that holds true for the unit he's unboxing now as well.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the Pro unit here. It's a little bit larger, of course, than the Mini, but again, it contains the same militarized case that is recyclable. Ship it back to us or keep it. Makes it really easy to transport. So we're just going to move this guy right over here and switch the camera.
Yep. Now, while Kevin's switching over the camera, I'd like to go back to the spare parts kit. So with the thought that you're going to have many units in the field, we kind of took a methodology of what do the large sand vendors do, and in an effort to make your life a little bit easier, they do offer these spare parts kits. So as an optional purchase for the Mini, you can order a spare parts kit that will include a RAM chip and an extra hard drive. So generally speaking, most partners would just have one of those regardless of how many Minis they have in the field. And for the Pros, it will include a RAM chip, a hard drive, a fan, and a power supply as well, I believe. Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, so again, this is a little bit louder, but it's very quiet. You can sit this under a desk and you wouldn't even notice it's there. I had this in my office for quite a long time, and like Andy says, I hate noise, and so I kept working on it until it was quiet enough where I would forget that it was there, and then I knew that I had reached the right level of noise. So, as you can see, there's 20
Still can't hear
solid.
it.
Yeah. So there's 20 solid-state disk hot swappable slots. Very easy to swap these out. Yeah. Oops, pop these guys back in. So we've got 4 populated right now. There's actually 10 fans, 10 low RPM fans pulling air in. So what happens is the air comes in, through the foil on the top, and then it's slowly drawn through into the back. There's 2 fans here, and there's a fan on the top, and then there's a fan behind the system. Pulling air, the 10 gigabit network interface is actually the hottest component in the system, funny enough. And anyway, there's dual 10 gigabit NICs, 120 gigs of RAM. The OS is a M2 SSD dedicated, and then you've got, of course, the FastFlash and DuraBit technology on this unit. So this really is a little SAN in a box. The 8-core Xeon processor and 120 gigs of RAM lets you virtualize just about anything that an MSP would encounter for your average customer base. So,
Kevin, do you want to take a moment and talk a little bit about, there are a whole bunch of hot swap trays in there, but I only see 4 drives lit up. So you have an option of ordering this pre-configured with different sizes. We'll pre-populate the disks based on what the order is. But can you define a little bit for me what field upgradable means with regard to the storage on these units?
Yeah, absolutely. So you order the storage pack, that upgrades, for example, from a Pro 3000 to a Pro 6000. 4 hard disks would show up with the same type of slot. You would just simply, unplug these guys and then slide in the replacement trays and ship back. We'll include a little envelope to ship back the 4 trays that are empty. And you won't even have to mess with the screws. You just simply pop those new drives in, and you're ready to go. So you have to use eFolder drives. Again, our FastFlash technology is not something you can get off the shelf, and so you do need to use our add-on packs, but they're affordable. Essentially, you're adding 3 terabytes of storage for, I think it's $1,200, one-time cost to purchase the upgrade pack, and then the subscription price changes, from the Pro 3000 subscription price, for example, to the Pro 6000. So with that, we should probably wrap up here and go to questions. Let me change the camera angle back, and yeah, we'll start sharing the screen again here. Okay, so to summarize, we've heard that BDR solutions are expensive, they can be unreliable, labor-intensive, and slow. And with the new solution at half the 3-year total cost, same hardware cost, half the monthly cost, you're getting 10x the value, super fast storage, fully integrated, pre-configured, and it's going to save you a lot of labor over time. And potentially, the backups on this are going to virtualize and run even faster than your production environment. So yeah, with that, we're going to do a poll and then go to Q&A.
Okay, let's do one more polling question, so I'm going to go ahead and launch that.
Okay.
There's no wrong answers here, everybody. Okay, I'm going to give that a couple seconds to cook. So we're looking for everybody to chime in with what you thought was the most compelling feature of the new Replibit BDR appliances. Couple more seconds. Please share your point of view, and then we'll share this with everybody. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the polls and share that.
Okay. Very interesting, yeah. So all SSD architecture with FastFlash and DuraBit technology. I think that's interesting because, pain point performance was the 4th option, but I'd be curious to talk to MSPs to know more, but essentially the power of that gives you far more reliability, not just performance, which I think, combined with the size, the smaller size and power profile. So Number one, and then it was kind of a toss-up between the next three with appliance-based pricing, the $99 a month price point for 1 terabyte, and then the mini form factor. So yeah,
okay.
let's just.
So Kevin, I think what would be good, because there's a ton of like super detailed questions, I think what would be good would be to go back to the matrix, just to put that up on screen. And there's a couple questions around, did you go back? Kevin, did you go back to the matrix?
It's just catching up. Yep.
There we go. Okay, there's a couple questions. Can you talk again about how many drives are in the minis, how many SSD drives are in the minis, and how the redundancy works?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's there's 4 SSDs in this package. It's amazingly small, and so 3 of these SSDs are for the data, and they're dedicated to the data. And so each SSD has the DuraBit technology plus the FastFlash technology. So each SSD itself provides over 80,000 read IOPS and over 10,000 write IOPS individually, and then they're combined into one logical volume using the silent data corruption protection and the RAID-Z technology of ZFS to deliver that 1 terabyte of logical usable flash storage on your data volume. You've got a separate SSD for the operating system. And so it's, I think, 128 gig SSD. We're using half of that and reserving the other half for over provisioning to keep that SSD healthy over time. And so yeah, if any, oh, go ahead, Andy. Yep.
Yeah. So Kevin, the equivalent on the RAID Z1 storage pool for the 3 hard drives that are the repository, the backup data sets, it's basically the equivalent of a RAID 5 set, right?
Yeah, with solving certain problems because it's done in software at the file system layer.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's better than RAID 5 because you don't have to rewrite that block and write it back again, which is important for SSD reliability over time. And then,
and it's also important to note that because there's a single drive for the OS, we back up the entire configuration on the OS drive twice a day into the ZFS storage pool. So should there be a failure in the unlikely event on these enterprise class SSDs, recovery is very simple. It's just a replacement of that OS drive and a script that is run that literally copies the configuration back. You reboot the machine and you're right back where you were without any data loss.
That's right. Yep. Good point, Andy. So we make that. It's unlikely for that to happen, but if it does, it's pretty easy to recover using your spare parts kit or using the warranty. So it's a 3-year warranty, 2 years advanced replacement parts. There is a 5-year extended warranty option available as well. So we make the warranty pretty simple and straightforward.
Great. So Kevin, can you talk about shipping and availability, please?
Oh yeah, good point. When can you get your hands on one? So these are going to be shipping August 1st. We've already got a lot of these in inventory, ready to build. So we're just gearing up for that and making sure that everything's ready to go logistically. We will be taking pre-orders Monday, July 18th. And so you can start to order them 2 weeks in advance, and then we'll start shipping them August 1st.
Okay, so just a couple tactical things. We did record today's session, and we will be sending out a WMV copy of the recording along with the slides. We will also be hitting everybody with a copy of these spec sheets so you have the details. Those will be available for download. And then the recording will also be on eFolder's YouTube channel. So let's see here. So Kevin, just a couple questions. People are just keep asking the same one, but I just want to make sure it's super clear. The Mini can do on-site virtualization, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. So, I've virtualized several VMs at once on the Mini, and it's faster, than the original production servers that we were backing up. So, this is a server class. This is not an Intel NUC, or something like that with a single, spinning hard disk inside of it. This is a server in a box, in a small form factor made possible because of the modern Intel chipsets combined with the power of this unique flash storage that delivers that, that server experience in a much smaller form factor. So we looked at the NUCs. They're a little smaller. They're 4.5 inches square, and so going to a 7.5-inch square form factor, gave us just enough power, and room really to build a true server class offering, and still something that's quite tiny that you can hide behind a monitor.
Okay, great. Kevin, lots of questions around NFR units or demo units.
So we'll be making a live demo environment available. I think it's going to be difficult for us to have a demo program for these, but we'll have a live demo environment where you can actually get onto an appliance live and experiment with it. The Replibit software itself, you can go and download it right now and get a trial, and so start playing around with it. And so that is our current plan for how to get experience before buying with one of these units.
Okay, and can you explain the on the appliance-based pricing, the unlimited cloud retention policies, how that works?
Yeah, so if you choose, the standard plan, which is 3-year cloud retention, many competitors only give you 1-year cloud retention. So it pre-configures, hey, I want to keep dailies for 30 days, and then there's a certain number of weeklies and monthlies. You'll keep monthlies up to a year, and then you can have 1, 2, or 3 years of yearly snapshots, and that's your 3-year cloud retention that's included in that $99 a month price point for your 1 terabyte unit. So as you go up in size with these units, the monthly subscription price increases, but it's just one flat price based on the size of the appliance or your bring your own device subscription that you're using. And that includes the licenses for the agents as well as the cloud, eFolder's cloud.
Okay, and then
if you're
talk
oh, go ahead, Ted, sorry.
Andy, I think you were going to chime in, right?
No, that wasn't me.
Okay, sorry. And then mixing and matching, can you vault some clients to yourself and then some to eFolder?
Absolutely, yeah. You just, for each appliance, you can choose, is it per agent, Andy, that you can even choose where it goes? I can't remember.
Yeah, each appliance device, you have the ability to add multiple vaults into its configuration, and at a granular level, you can select which protected system you want to replicate to which particular vault in the sky. So it can be an eFolder vault or it can be your own, depending on need.
Okay, and I think it's important to note that the vaulting, if you vault to yourself, there's no extra cost for the vaulting software. So let me just say, as a matter of procedure, we like to end webinars on time. We've got a ton of questions that have not been answered. So we will try to get back to you individually on these questions, or maybe prepare a consolidated FAQ with answers, because in an hour, we're only able to get to a fraction of the questions. But I guess what I'd like to do is, in the interest of ending on time, Kevin, why don't we wrap up with just a few comments?
Yeah, so we had the opportunity to really take a step back. eFolder removed ourselves from hardware for a while, and we learned a lot from MSPs, and so as the cost of flash dropped, we saw the opportunity to take that as a basis, build on these proprietary technologies around it, plus the potential of the Replibit software to deliver something that I would be excited about myself. It was fun building and working with Andy and our teams to get it done. And yeah, we're excited to learn with MSPs as we deploy this, how that's going to work. So Andy, leave it to you to close up here.
I just want to thank everybody for your time. We're super excited about being part of the eFolder family. We couldn't be more happy about the rollout of a hardware-based solution. We're firmly committed. It's our bread and butter, our history, to give you the ability to bring your own device. But we also knew that there was a gap out there, and with the power of eFolder, we can now finally fill that gap for our partners who were looking for that. So we're really, really excited about this. Thanks.
Okay, everybody, thanks a lot for joining today's Replibit BDR Appliance product announcement. Thank you, Kevin Hoffman, CEO of eFolder, Andy Benzinger, founder of Replibit and CEO. Thanks a lot, everybody. This is Ted Hulsey, VP of Marketing here at eFolder. We're signing off. Take care now.